So, Storm Connections, right? I personally don't think the game's terrible. I think it's pretty good for a game. I think it's pretty solid. Pretty solid for a game of its series. The first entry of the series is just absolutely amazing. I absolutely love the open worldness of the first game. Something sort of existed in the second game, but it was more like an action game. Like it felt more to me like an action, like an arena fighter. So we have three right after, and three is repeat of two, just more stuff added to it. There's like practice mode. There's a lot more stuff in three than there was in two. Whereas two has a lot of great classics, like the Hidden Leaf Village stage with one of the best soundtracks in the game. A lot of really good track in Storm 2. So that being carried over to 3. And then we had, some new additions, such as a certain Sasuke that I miss. He was just absolutely amazing of a character. And then Storm 3 also had a lot of great boss fights, like the Great Ninja War. We had some cool boss fights in there. A lot of storytelling in Storm 3. Probably the best in the series, especially from Storm 2 and Storm 1. But Storm 3 for me was an amazing game. And it's really a game that I would consider a classic. So we get to Storm 4. People were disappointed. I was disappointed as well. Storm 4 was filled with slideshows, a bunch of stuff like that. QTEs were cool. I think the Boruto DLC definitely saved. It was really cool. There was like a QTE for that. That was awesome. Really cool dynamic battles. Moderate boss fight was really cool. There were some really cool boss fights. Kage boss fight was nice. Opener was cool. There's some really cool stuff in there. They had the armor break mechanic, which was new to the series. It was great voice acting performances. Just overall for me, I think Storm 4 really saved itself over the years for me. I think it's a very good game. I think it's solid. So when coming into Storm Connections, you have a lot of characters that were carried over from the previous games. They play the exact same as they would in 4, but they're just buffed. Some characters got nerfed, some characters got buffed. The ones that got buffed became better. But I think a lot of characters needed a buff. Certain characters needed buffs for sure. But during my playthrough, I really loved Tobirama's buff though. He now can shoot 3 water dragons, and his grab is a teleport, which is amazing. And it really fits his character. The game has been upscale. Graphics wise, it's really upscale. We have the inclusion of Boruto characters. There's a lot of customization. There's a lot of more stuff to do in Storm Connections than I thought of before. Storm 2, we had the reward system. Storm 3, we didn't really have a reward system. Whereas in Storm Connections, we have that, where you can rank up characters and gain Rio, or you could go and spend Rio to get armor parts or to get accessories, point characters, stuff like that. And then you can change the character poses and stuff like that. You can go online and battle. It seems cool. I think during my experience, it was very cool. But that wasn't really the thing that got me. It's good for what it is. I think Storm Connections is better than what 4 was. During my playthrough, I'll talk about each individual mode individually. Let's talk about the characters first. Gameplay, it feels like an action game. There's a lot happening. Your chakra regenerates, but I found myself spending a lot of chakra because they're just, you gotta fight. You gotta deal damage. You gotta go in. So I found myself using a lot of chakra and charging chakra. But there's a lot happening, and I noticed that it feels like an action game instead of just some, bland arena fighter. It feels very similar to Demon Slayer now than it did before. There's a lot of action happening. You can use your supports. You can switch characters. For me, I think some characters deserved a buff. I think Sarada's buff is a good one. Now that she has Shidori, she's like so useful now. It's insane. Well, there's also another Boruto, and that one is the Karma one, and he has Thunderclap Arrow, and his combos are really good. His Ninjutsu 1 and 2 are really good. It's just a lot. Like you can turn a basic character into a good character. Now that characters are being buffed, and some characters that were strong before are being, slightly nerfed. It feels a more better game than what four was. There's a lot more happening, and I think it's good. I think it's really good. With the inclusion of the Boruto characters, they just fit perfectly. Especially considering this is a Boruto game, they just fit perfectly in the game, and I think that's what makes this game, special. The fact that characters have their own different play styles, and you kind of gotta find one that suits you. I found myself using Sage and Naruto a lot because you're just going in, dealing damage. I found myself using Kashin Koji because he's just so good. Like, man, he has a toe that comes down. His main though is a little iffy because it doesn't have good range. It just goes in front of him and that's it. So there's not much. There's not like crazy stuff happening with the jutsu. Is just he just does like a flame tornado in front of him, and it doesn't really have much distance. It just goes in front of him and disappears, but it stays for long enough to where like someone can come in and get hit by it or something. Awakenings now play a more prominent role. Now it could really turn the tide in certain matches. Yeah, I have to bring this up. Back in the old games, you used to have tilts. If you flick the joystick and press the attack button, you get like a special action. Here, some characters have the same actions. It's just some of them are changed for something else, or some of them are slightly altered. Some have been better, some have been worse. For some characters, I thought that tilts being kept as second ninjutsus would have been pretty lame. These tilts being their second ninjutsus fit right in, so it wasn't really horrible. Played Kid Naruto with his tilt as his second ninjutsu, and then I played as Sage Naruto with his tilt as his second ninjutsu. Now that that's the case, I don't hate it because it actually works to do the action. So now that it's just second ninjutsu, it feels better. A lot of characters that were weak are now better. Most characters are good. I think most characters are good. Some characters are better than others. I think it depends on what you fancy. I found myself playing characters like Karma Boruto a lot. I thought his combos were very good. His ninjutsus were very useful. And I did play the first Boruto as well. I played a lot of characters. Most of the characters on the roster. I really appreciated the buff to Six Paths Naruto. So now he has Super Tail Beast for Shuriken as his second ninjutsu. So as for the modes, there's only 4. There's only 4 modes in the whole game. This is something that actually bothered me. I'm not used to that kind of formula. I know that Storm 3 had about 3, but each individual mode had a lot to it. It didn't really feel like it was like bland or something. Each individual mode in Storm 3 and 2 and 1 had important thing to it. So it didn't really feel like it was bland or anything like that. Here, I don't know. It feels strange for a Storm game to have so little of options in terms of what you can select. The action, it's there. The customization, I think it's good. I think the fact that they're actually giving us costumes is so much better than it was before. We can add accessories to characters. We can do things that we weren't able to do in Storm 4, and now it's just 10 times better. There's a lot that has changed. And with the meta changing for characters and ninjutsus, it's honestly just gonna get better from here. There are some issues with like the voice lines. I noticed that with some boss battles or some characters ninjutsus, it would be off. Some characters would say attacks differently than how it's actually written, which is something that confuses me. I'm like, whoa. I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be said, or maybe I'm not sure. There are just some things that I just don't understand. The opening to the game, I thought the opener to the game was cool. I had played pretty much every mode in the game. There's only 4. There's history mode, there is special story, there's collection, there's also free battle. I played free battle. I played every single survival mode. Hey, I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun. The game moves better, pretty much better graphics than Storm 4. I'm pretty much happy with it. And seeing old stages from the old games return in high quality like this is just honestly amazing. There's more freaking stages. Okay, there's more stages in the base game than there was in the base version of Storm 4. I mean, that's a great improvement. There's a lot of characters that are carried over, but to my point of view, I think they're all great. I think they're all great. They have their own unique play styles, and that's just how they operate. Some characters are gonna get better, some characters are gonna get worse, and that's just how it's gonna be. So, with all that, I'm gonna go on to the other stuff. So, I played history mode. It's filled with slideshows because they're basically, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to basically like have you relive the show like the anime. There's like heavy censorship on the blood. It's like blood is black. The voice acting, I don't really know. To me, I kind of just I was playing it all, and then I just got bored, and I just kind of just skipped everything, and I honestly just wanted to play the boss battles. That's really what the nostalgia was for me. Playing the OG boss battles in this new way for me was the best part. I think the new approach is cool. I'm confused about the censorship, and I'm also confused about the QTEs, right? In the old games, the QTEs were very, very harsh. If you missed an action, the character would like have a defeat animation, or they would get hit by an attack and they would die or something, and then the game would just hit you with a retry of that QTE that you missed. And that realism to the games is what made them popular. It's what made them good. So now that that's gone, it's like, why? So now the QTEs just, if you miss, it continues. It just keeps playing. There's no like you missed and we'll penalize you. It's like, okay, you miss and you keep playing. You can get a perfect score. You keep playing. I'm not a fan of that. I think that's weird. I think as a player, I want to be challenged. I don't want the game to hold my hand during a boss fight, right? You want to lose and then come back and then get better. And I get it, there's new players and they're trying to make it easy for new players, but it's just making the game easy. Especially if you're trying to, be faithful to the OGs. The OGs remember how the games used to be, how tough, and they used to be rough. They used to be rough in terms of their difficulty, and just the base difficulty itself was difficult. And I think one of the toughest boss battles in particular was the Tail Beast boss battle, where you have to play as Kurama versus all the Tail Beasts, and then you have to fight Toby after, but it's pretty much just the Tail Beasts taking you on one by one, going through number, and it's a pain. Okay, it is a pain having to fight all of them, and there's different sections to it, and it's just even worse with that. But it was difficult, and it was awesome. That kind of challenge was awesome. And then you had the Kurama boss fight, and that was difficult. Like, these boss fights feel like, very similar to Dark Souls. Like, it really feels very similar to it in the fact that it's just difficult. But you get better, you get that S rank, and you win. So here, it's not the same, really. It's just, to me, I think I beat him like one day. It was just very straightforward. To kind of just do it. You spam and you just win. That's pretty much it. You have old boss battles like Naruto versus not Naruto versus Sasuke, because that was removed. You have Naruto versus Gaara from Storm 1. I'm just trying to go based off memory here. Naruto versus Sasuke from Storm 2. Naruto versus Kakashi with Sakura. And then there's Sasuke versus Itachi from Storm 2. Naruto versus Pain. And Kurama versus Naruto. Itachi and Sasuke versus Kabuto. There's not that many. There's like fights, but they're versus fights. So I don't really consider those boss fights because they're just versus. Like it's just like a fight, but with unlimited time, and it's just not really a boss fight. It's just a fight with a voiceover, right? I usually consider boss fights like fights with QTEs, and then after this would be like Storm 4 stuff. So this is like, and there's no Kaguya fight here. This is Madara and Hashira versus each other. Naruto and Sasuke versus Obito. Yeah, there's just not much. Just, I'll be honest, these are fights that are straightforward. Like, from this point, this is literally just fights that are just straightforward. And then they try to add like little other battles, but these are not boss fights. These are not things that are new. These are just versus battles. So that will be like Indra versus Ashura, Naruto Sasuke, Sakura versus Kaguya. These are just fights that are just like versus battles. Like to me, they don't really matter that much. They're just fights with voiceovers. They're just kind of here to just waste your time. History mode is just it's just a mode. I don't know who they're for. If it's a storm game and you're trying to call it a connections or a generation game, why not just add all the freaking fights in? There are even fights from. There should have been fights from Boruto in it. So it's just there's not much fights. There's just fights that are just okay. These are fights. Some fights are OG stuff, and then there are fights that are cut. Like, bro, Naruto versus Sasuke from Storm 3 cut. Like, there are some fights that should have been here. That should have actually been here because it's a $6 game. This is a game that's supposed to be a generation game. So history mode is it can be disappointing. I'll be honest, it can be disappointing, especially if you're a OG Storm fan. But if you're a new fan of the series, you're probably gonna like it. But for me personally, since I'm someone who played all the games since he was a kid, this is kind of an insult. I should say this. There's been a lot of changes. Just with the base game. There's been a change with some awakenings, and so the majestic attire for Naruto and Sasuke, you can basically like transform into it with either Kurama Link and Mangekyo Sharingan Sasuke, or 6 pads and Rene Sharingan Sasuke. I thought that was cool. I don't know why we don't have the other version for the Boruto, Naruto, and Sasuke. I'm not sure. There's just, there's a lot of stuff that are missing. Things that people would want to be in the game, and it's just not here yet. The game's early, so I'm not gonna do too much. There's not much. There's like movesets are even better than they were before. Soundtrack, I think it relies on the OG stuff, so I think it's cool. I think the OG soundtracks being back was something that I loved the most. Being able to play in the original Hidden Leaf Village stage was awesome for me. There's no adventure mode or anything like that. It's just okay. I think the special story, saved the game for me. I think the story is really good. I really loved playing it. I had a really good time. I really loved the final boss battle. It was really awesome. With the new characters on the roster, like, there are some really cool things to be done with these characters. Movesets to one another. They have cool ultimates, cool specials. I think Baron was one that I love the most because his base form is not Baron. It's just his chakra mode, and then he turns into Baron in his ultimate or his awakening. But it's cool how they did it, right? It's cool how they did it, how they mixed it around, and they knew what they were doing when they were making the character. I think it depends on how you look at it. Is this game worth $60? It depends on how you look at it. As a fan of the game, on one end, I actually was okay with it. I was like, okay, if I'm a fan of the Storm games, I'm okay with spending $60 on my favorite game. If you're coming in and you see this level of lacking, you're probably not going to buy the game. And I'm not going to blame anyone for doing that because everyone's inclined to do so. But I will say, as a Storm fan, I think it's worth the purchase for sure. If you're a fan of either Naruto or the games or the series in general, why not just pick up the game and experience it for yourself? This entire video, this entire thing of me talking about the game has just been me expressing my thoughts on the game. And it's really nothing more than that. I have some issues with the game. I have some complaints about the game. I think the best thing a person can do can decide for themselves whether or not if they want to get the game or not. Me personally, I think the game is for those who have been fans of the original series. And I think for me, when I bought the game, I think it was just cool with it. I think it was a cool game. I thought it was cool to see the Storm games come back. Overall, I think the game's a good game. I think it's good. I think Special Story carried the gameplay of the characters being buffed and being nerfed has really helped the game's meta. And I think stages from the older games coming back and being revamped to fit the modern standard is even better. And so when you're playing these stages and you're hearing the old soundtrack, it's just like, it's amazing. for me, it was just amazing, and it just fit the experience perfectly. And being able to customize this much, and there's not much customization right now, right? Because when you're grinding and doing all this stuff, and you're buying every costume in the game, there's not much to do right now. But hopefully, they'll add more stuff, and people will do whatever they want and be able to have as much fun, as they imagine. It's most of it is recycled, but there've been changes to characters, mostly from like the Boruto series. But I think it's the history mode is okay, right? Because everything is recycled, and there's missing fights. I don't know why there's missing fights in that. That it's weird. Don't know why. You're charging people a certain price. At that point, there's going to be expectations. Especially considering the fact that this is a game that is a connections game. It's funny because when the game first dropped, matchmaking was terrible. And it probably still is. Matchmaking is definitely an issue. History mode is definitely another problem. The amount of slideshows in there is ridiculous. The censorship is crazy. People's most favorite boss fights are missing. Don't know why. There are even boss fights from the older games that could have been here. Gaara versus Data, that was a really amazing fight. Naruto versus Orochimaru, that was a really cool fight. Sakura versus Sasori, there's some fights that could have made it here, and just no excusing it. It really isn't. Don't know what to really say. While I love the Storm 4 boss fights, even though the Night Guy stuff is missing, I think the Storm 4 stuff is a nice inclusion. Is it justified for $60? No. It feels like a $30 game, if I'm honest, because just how much there's missing, and also it's just like, bro, it's just not finished, bro. I'm being honest, the game's not finished, and there's just so much lacking. But while I love the free battle part of the game so much, because of how better it is and how upscaled the stages are, and it's kind of crazy how you'll be spending most of your time in free battle. Like I shouldn't be feeling that way. I should want to go back and replay history mode. I should want to go back and replay these boss fights. There are boss fights from Special Story also doesn't have QTEs, even though there are QTEs in history mode. It's like they're aware of what is happening. How do you have QTEs in your history mode, but zero QTEs in your Special Story mode? I find that insane. And Special Story is really good. I thought it was nice. But it's like, bro, you need to put QTEs. It's just the foundation of the game. To remove it is... And that's when you start to ask, who is this for? Because you're ruining the essence of what the games were. There was a sense of realism in the old games. If you missed an action during a QTE, your character would just get hit and die and basically like have a retry. But if you fail everything, you're basically dead. And that realism to the games was just the challenge that I wanted. Now that it's gone, it's like it's just kind of like who is this for, man? Realistically, like who is this for? This is my honest question. Who is this for? Because every single version of the anime or just the games have some semblance of blood. To just remove it and paint it black it's ridiculous. It's honestly ridiculous. And it's like they're aware. It's ridiculous, man. Come on. The sense of ambition that you get when you're playing the old games is just crazy. The scale that these boss battles happen at is insane. The level of just artistic vision, you can see that. So to not have that here is just big blow, especially when the game is $60 and the previous games are literally half that price or significantly cheaper if it's on sale. I find that extremely insulting. And there's characters that were in the previous games that are missing. There are awakenings from the previous games that are missing. It's ridiculous. while I love the action can't carry everything. There's a sense of there's just so much that has to be made. It's so crazy because there were animated cutscenes in the old games. Most of the story were animated cutscenes. So now that we have all these slideshows and less animated cutscenes, it tells you what has happened to the games. I'm honestly disappointed. This is a really disappointing release, for sure. It isn't terrible in terms of the action sense. I can definitely see myself playing this for a while, but when that happens, the game dies. And I think the problem is that there's no replayability. You know, you don't want to go back and replay the fights from before or something like that because there's not that many in there. And so you gotta go and boot up the older games, which are cheaper than the new game, just to actually get a full-on experience of what it was like. Yeah. Overall, I think the game's okay. I think it's all right. It's nice to see the Storm 4 stuff in history mode. I think it's okay. It's just, honestly, it's just embarrassing. Because I know that they're ambitious people, so to see this is, it's crazy. Because the games were known for being similar to Asua's Wrath, so now that we're getting this, it's just, it's a shame. I think overall the game's alright. If I give it a rating for me personally, I'll give it a 7 because of the new characters. New characters are very, very, very cool. Swiss story is nice. History mode, I don't know, but I liked the fact that they allowed us to play specific battles, but it would have helped even more if they gave us even more battles. Customization is nice. There's honestly only 4 modes, so there's not that much I could really talk about. But there's a lot that could have been done that would have really helped the game more.
I don't feel like I'm gonna lose.